Good morning. How many of you are familiar with the 8-agency state workforce system? Well, I want to tell you a little bit about where this model came from, and to do that, please understand that I've been deeply involved with the public workforce system since 1990, served on a variety of Department of Labor commissions, task forces, and advisory boards, and served 2 terms under Governor Perry as chairman of the state's workforce board, which in Texas is called the Texas Workforce Investment Council. But I want you to notice 3 words up there: developing a sustainable, scalable, replicable model for a skilled workforce. And those 3 words are important because when we were building the current state 8-year plan, and I went to the agency directors and said, where are some models that meet those 3 criteria? For the most part, the agency directors said, we don't really know of any. Without having to find a grant to fund it, the programs that can serve 50 but not 5,000, the programs that work in Houston but not in Dallas. I want you to take a look at this. The Texas workforce system, the vision, an innovative, world-class Texas workforce system ensures success in the dynamic global economy. Do you know what the mission statement was when I first became chairman? It was a full typewritten page of paragraphs. I remember asking my executive director, I've never seen a mission statement that went beyond maybe a brief paragraph. How did we get a page? She said all 8 agencies lobby to get all of that in because once the governor signs the plan, they all have to go to the Legislative Budget Board and demonstrate that their agency plan fully aligns with and supports the state plan. And so they go and lay this mission statement down and say, we're doing nearly all of this. And I said, okay, nearly all doesn't mean all. Which part are they not doing? And she went to the final sentence where it said collaborate. And I said, well, the new mission statement is going to be, the mission of the Texas workforce system is for its 8 agency members to collaborate to create a highly skilled trained workforce. And she looked at me and said, are you serious? And I said, very. And I said, and Governor Perry will approve it. And he did. So that was the mission statement for the last plan. This is the one for the new plan, because guess what? When the mission statement simply said collaborate, they all did that. The mission becomes growing and sustaining a competitive workforce, aligning programs with employer needs, integrating system services, leveraging partnerships. I can't count how many school districts and universities and colleges I've partnered with over the years who all say, I need industry. And I've always started by saying, then you truly need to hear industry. Because when they say, I need this kind of skilled worker, they will be all over you in support if they see you responding to that. I came to Arlington in 2001, and I went to meet the Workforce Board Executive Director, and I said, I want you to think of me as president of the chamber doing simply this. I organize the business community for a living, and they pay me to be organized. She looked shocked, and I said, and I'd like to partner with you, because you as a workforce board have to get industry input to do what you do. And so you try to recruit industry to help them understand who you are so they will talk to you. Why don't you just come meet with all of my boards and task forces and commissions and get all the input you want? I'll put you on every agenda. And she says, what do I have to pay you? I said, nothing. The only thing I ask is listen to them. And if they say, this is what we need, please be responsive. This is the system in Texas. The Governor's Office of Economic Development, the Department of Criminal Justice, the Texas Education Agency you're all very familiar with, Texas Health and Human Services, the Higher Ed Coordinating Board, Juvenile Justice, the Veterans Commission, and the Workforce Commission. Those 8 agencies are all legally a part of the system in Texas, and they all fall under the state plan. And when we built the current 8-year plan, I asked all of those 8 agencies to do something we'd never done before. I said, instead of the council trying to draft a plan for 8 state agencies, I want each of you to draft the first round of the next plan based on your own agency. You come and present it to the council. They did a tremendous job. And what might be noteworthy for you when we think about coordination and collaboration is at the end of that year-long process of all 8 agencies presenting, Andre Alcantar, who then chaired the Workforce Commission, came up to me and said, this has been incredible. You made us listen to each other. We've learned a lot about each other's agencies. And now Michael Williams at TEA and I and Raymond Paredes at the coordinating board would like to go around the state and convene meetings and listen to school districts, colleges, universities, local workforce boards, employer organizations. What do you think? And I said, do it. Just document what you learn and we'll use that to inform the process. We now know that as the Tri-Agency Partnership, and it's responsible for the 60 by 30 plan. But what started that was 3 agencies agreeing they could work together. Back to integration and alignment. So as we go through this presentation, understand that at the heart of what you're going to see is integration and alignment. We're not going to talk to you about hiring more staff, adding administrative structure, finding a lot of grant dollars. We're going to simply talk to you about a way to realign an independent school district with a lot of other partners. See, I figured out the button to push. These are 3 things that came out of the statewide planning process that struck all of us. One is the fact that we have a significant unmet demand in critical industry sectors. DOL recently released that there are 7.2 million jobs available in the U.S., but we only have 6.6 million job applicants, and we're still not filling the jobs. And the simple reason is the majority of those applicants don't have the skills for the jobs that are available. The second thing that came out was industry more and more is moving toward industry recognized certifications. But you need to understand that industry recognized means only about 4% of the ones on the market will meet that criteria we're going to talk about. And the third was our underserved populations of veterans, justice-involved youth, and justice-involved adults. And I took those seriously and made a decision that I wanted to work on those. And so I looked at the unmet demand, and you see that lack of mid-level STEM skills, significant unmet demand in the U.S., growing use of certifications, but growth of non-industry recognized certifications causing confusion. But here's an example of demand. Today in Dallas County, most recent numbers, in transportation, distribution, and logistics, the average wage is $52,978. The non-duplicated demand, 4,808 unfilled jobs. Certified logistics technician would qualify your students coming out of high school for a majority of those jobs. Advanced manufacturing and production, average wage, not bad, $114,433. Unduplicated demand, $5,378. A certified production technician would enable a lot of those students to pursue those jobs. And I think if most high school parents knew you could start at 6 figures out of high school, they might encourage more of their students to stay in, get that certification, rather than dropping out for a minimum wage job. I want you to think a moment about this, industry recognized certifications. Right now, there are over 330,000 credentials in the marketplace coming to you saying, I've got your answer. But please understand that about 96% of them, when you go to market with them, employers go, I have no idea what that is, and it's meaningless to me. Less than 5% meet those 4 criteria. Industry recognized, meaning endorsed by a third-party association. The simplest thing you can ask anyone trying to sell you curriculum is, what national industry association, separate and apart from you, has endorsed you? And about 96% will say, well, we don't have a third-party endorser. I would encourage you to think closely before you buy that curriculum. But let's look at what that means. All of you are familiar with the term ISO. You hear industry talking about meeting ISO standards. It's the International Organization for Standards. And it was set up because it was difficult for business to do business internationally if there were different standards in every country you do business in. ISO 17024 is a standard regarding certifications. There's a group called the American National Standards Institute that actually accredits certifications, and national industry and trade associations endorse them. And that's the criteria. By the way, you're all going to get a copy of this PowerPoint if you want it. So I know you're scribbling notes furiously, and I'm going to cover some of this fairly quickly. So you can peruse this to your heart's content. And then I looked at these 3 populations. Would it surprise you to know that 1 in 3 working age Americans has a record? Would it surprise you to know that in Texas and across the country, the majority of people incarcerated are minor nonviolent offenders. And would it surprise you that the majority of those are first-time minor nonviolent offenders? And so we looked at that challenge, public perception. When we're building this plan, and I went to employers and said, we need to include these populations in the model, the initial response was, I don't know if I can have those dangerous people in my building. And so we had to do some awareness and change some perceptions. We had to give them data, look at public policy. We have over 1,000 laws on the books in Texas that make it challenging for anyone with a record to seek employment. And legislatively, people are working on that. System integration, just like the tri-agency partnership, getting all of these resources to align and work together, agency collaboration, but ultimately building what we're calling collaborative community capacity. Eric and I were at a meeting not long ago. Eric's with TI. He's going to talk to you about why industry supports this. And we were told somebody wanted to convene a meeting to talk about writing a white paper to see if someday the white paper might be the basis to talk about how we could collaborate. And I said, well, we're already actually doing it. I don't think we need to go to that meeting. This is what I just shared with you. And I want you to look at this example. Tarrant County welcomes back right at 25,000 individuals annually from incarceration. 71% will be rearrested within 3 years. That's up from 68% 3 years ago. More than half in the first year, but if employed, they are 10 times less likely to be arrested. If they earn an associate's degree, it drops to 14%. If they earn a bachelor's degree, it drops to 7%. And if they earn a master's, it drops to 0. That's why your educational programs are so critical. And so I looked at this in this way, that one of our critical economic issues is how do we make sure we can fill those 5,000 plus manufacturing jobs in Dallas County, or the 4,000 plus logistics jobs? Because Brian Daniel, who runs the Governor's Office of Economic Development, was on a panel with me last fall, and when asked what brings companies to Texas, he said proof of a workforce. He said every company that looks at Texas, and every company we try to bring to Texas, first and foremost asks us, show me that you can provide the skilled talent I need, and then we'll talk about my coming to Texas. And if you can't show me that, Texas is off my list. So how do we fill those jobs? Change. I went to run an organization in Arkansas in 1985. And when I interviewed, the office manager came up to me and said, sir, I hope I'm glad to meet you. And I said, well, I hope you are too. She said, well, I don't take well to change. And I said, that's really unfortunate. And she gave me a strange look. 6 weeks later, my first day on the job, she ran into my office and said, what did you mean? I said, Frankie Joe, good morning. What are we talking about? She said, your conversation with me when I said I hoped I was glad to meet you, you said you hope I was too. I said, I don't take well to change. You said, that's unfortunate. Why is it unfortunate? I said, have you worried about this for 6 weeks? Yes. I said, well, it's just unfortunate, Frankie, because the man I'm replacing was 65, I'm 35. That's a change. I'm sure I won't do things exactly like he did. That's a change. But we've lost money for 5 years and membership for 8. Don't you think we ought to turn that around? She says, well, that's good change. I said, okay, we're going to focus on good change. Well, we're going to ask you to change a little bit today, to think a little differently about how you do what you do and how you deliver some of what you deliver. But that's about it. And it's just taking differently about approaching it, facilitating connectivity and establishing that connectivity to all of the stakeholder groups we've already brought together. What's our premise? Regional educational service centers provide the overall support. When I started down this road, I went to Gordon Taylor here at Region 10, and I went to see Clyde Steelman at Region 11. I said, I have a thought about developing a model, and I want you to think about it with me. And I'm going to ask you to do 3 things. As a service center, would you convene your superintendents and school districts and colleges, and/or just let me be at some of their meetings and let me talk to them about what I'd like them to think about doing? And assuming they agree, then would you provide technical support, assistance, and training to them and interface with state agencies on their behalf? And they said, well, sure, that's what we're in business to do. And I said, that's the idea. And then I'm going to go to the community colleges, and I'm going to say to them, do 3 things. Offer the certifications that are truly nationally recognized in our most unmet demand sectors on your campus. And then partner with your school districts to offer those same credentials in the school district as dual credit. And then do the strange thing, go into prisons and other penal institutions and provide that same certification training pre-release. Because one of the things that Brian Collier told me, who runs the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, when I followed up his presentation, I said, I heard your presentation, the numbers were stunning. Help me more effectively understand the issue. And he said, I'm going to demystify the issue. When we release people from prison in Texas, and they get back to wherever they're going to go back to, if they can't find a living wage job, I'm going to get them back. Because if they can't find a legal way to make a living, they'll probably find an illegal way to make a living. Solve the employment issue, you'll solve the recidivism issue. And I've said to the colleges, think of those facilities as bricks and mortar you didn't have to pay to build, and you don't have to pay to manage and operate. But I didn't increase your cost because someone taught in a prison today instead of your classroom. I'm adding to your student body, and I'm helping you provide more industry certifications, which is now a part of the litmus test for community colleges. And we're saying to you, the school districts, just work with your colleges for dual credit. DCCCD has committed, Mark Hayes, Vice Chancellor, they'll go anywhere, any place in this region if your community college district doesn't want to do this. And I applaud DCCCD for that. So whether your community college has stepped up or whether they don't, you've got a college partner that will work with you on dual credit programs if you're in Region 10. I want you to think about that. Then I'm going to employer-based organizations. In fact, we're having a meeting on the 19th of this month. We've invited 400 employers. We're organizing them into consortiums around these industry clusters. We're doing that for a couple of reasons. One, we're saying to them, we'll make sure that you're one of the first to get information about people earning these certifications so that you can employ them if you guarantee them interviews. We're not asking you to guarantee hiring them, we're asking you to guarantee you will interview them. And that's a part of building that pipeline so that when your students are coming out of high school with a certification, where do they go? And that's where we're pulling in the workforce boards. And the new work in Texas, which is the way they do business, they've got the capability now to take employers and note them in terms of what they're looking for. And within the workforce boards, we're going to have an asterisk by every employer who's guaranteed to interview people with these certifications. Meaning you'll be able to work directly with your workforce board to get your students in line for those jobs. And the prisons are doing the same thing. Someone earning a certification in prison will be sent to the employers who have indicated, I'm willing to interview someone with a record. So you see all of the groups we brought together, Regional Service Center, community colleges, independent school districts, economic development, industry and trade associations, workforce boards, all coming together around these kinds of issues, making sure the certifications meet that criteria we talked about. We wanted it to be employer-led and driven for a couple of other reasons. One, you'll find that a lot of the funding we've identified coming out of the system, particularly into workforce boards, can be used to augment costs. And almost all of it has as a criteria, do you have an employer consortium of employers who have indicated they're willing to interview and potentially hire the people you're training? So we're pre-forming those consortiums so that when the time comes to apply for the funding, we've already got that. And we're finding out that they don't know that they could get up to a $9,600 federal tax credit for hiring a veteran, that they could get up to a $9,600 tax credit for hiring someone justice involved, and the Department of Labor would bond them their first 6 months for $25,000. And so if you think about our outreach, and I don't know that this one survived the change, we're bringing together government, law enforcement, criminal justice, even housing authorities, shelters and associations, mental health and social services partners. And we're doing this in 4 regions today, and that gives you a snapshot of that. East Texas, North Texas and the DFW Metroplex, Gulf Coast region in Houston, capital area in Austin. And as we grow this, I want you to take a look for a moment. One of these things does something. There we go. There you go. Take a look at those two, Thrive and Combined Arms. We've taken another step in Houston. Thrive is an organization under the United Way umbrella composed of about 40 nonprofits that provide reentry support. We're now integrating them into the model. And combined arms as a nonprofit umbrella for 71 organizations that provide veterans service. We're bringing them into the model. We're going to be doing the same thing here in North Texas. Let's talk a little bit about CTE Alignment Strategy. Way back at House Bill 5, it mandated career pathways, and industry certifications now approved by TEA offer that pathway. And all of you know by now that there are two lists in Texas. The Texas Workforce Investment Council, in its role as the Texas Skills Standards Board, has approved over 200 some, and the TEA has also approved over 200 as appropriate for high school. And the genesis for that was, as we were going through the strategic plan, we identified over 5,000 certifications, partially or fully publicly funded. We finally took that list to all 28 local workforce boards. We asked them to take those lists aggregated by industry to their advisory groups and say, one question survey. Review all these certifications and tell us which ones would make a true difference in your employment decision. You want to guess how many made the list out of 5,000? Initially 178. Wow. So that's why we're spending time talking to you about, are these truly industry recognized? Here's a chart I thought you'd find interesting. These are the most recent numbers I got from the North Central Texas Workforce Boards. But you see, this was in transportation, distribution, and logistics. Collin County, 1,183 job openings. Dallas, 4,808. Denton, 1,164. Palo Pinto, 1,164. Interesting that they're identical. Tarrant County, 3,767. Travis County and Austin, 2,000. Harris County, 5,346. That's the demand in that one sector currently in those areas. And here's manufacturing. And you can see similar numbers across the board except Palo Pinto County, and they don't have a lot of manufacturing. But you see that the developed counties do. And that's one of the reasons we're talking to you about certifications. Now let's talk specifically about these certifications because they meet the criteria. They've been approved by the Texas Workforce Investment Council. And this is a group called the Manufacturing Skills Standards Council. They came out of the National Skills Standards Board that the Department of Labor established in the early 90s when they were trying to establish national standards across the board. And you'll find that most of these industry recognized ones are managed by a nonprofit that's recognized by a third-party industry group. This particular group is endorsed by the National Association of Manufacturers. They're certified by ANSI. They go through that every 2 years. And this is a little bit of their background. And again, you're going to get all of this. I promised Chris and others I would not read these slides to you, but the information is there for you. But you kind of get a sense of where they come from. And if you go from 2001 to today, you see all of the federal agencies they've worked with to come to this point. Departments of Defense, Labor, Education, Commerce, and the Veterans Administration. Accredited under ISO 17024, we talked about 1,600 assessment centers, 2,600 authorized instructors, etc. But let's look at this skill gap for just a minute. This is in manufacturing. You see 2.69 million jobs open from retirements, 1.96 million from natural growth equals 4.6. But we're projecting only 2.2 will likely be filled. Why? Because 53% of the open positions lie vacant due to a skills shortage. Talking to Walmart, we were at Alliance Airport about a year ago talking to 80 logistics companies. And the state Walmart rep stood up and said, I want to tell you why we use these certifications. We've tracked these numbers for a long time, and we found when we hire a CLT applicant, we spend on average $1,000 in their first 6 months bringing them to our standard. When we hire a non-CLT applicant, we spend on average $10,000 per new hire to bring them to our skills level. Now, the non-CLT applicants, we retain 50% at the end of 6 months. The CLT applicants, we retain 90%. Her closing statement was, why would we spend $100,000 to hire 10 and keep 5 when we could spend $10,000 to hire 10 and keep 9? Simple ROI. And so you see these key certifications. We're starting you with 2, Certified Production Technician, which is approximately 4 modules of 40 hours, clock hours apiece, and Certified Logistics Associate, leading to Certified Logistics Technician. Each of those 2 are about 40 hours apiece. So you can see that the middle 2 go together, and that's about 80 hours of a student's time. and the certified production technician leads in manufacturing. Now there's a new certified forklift technician. And it gives you a little bit about what they learn. You can kind of take a look at these two. CPT, the safety module, and you see the kind of skills they're learning, and you see the kinds of things that they experience. The CPT quality practices and measurements is the second module, and you see the kinds of things they learned in that course. The manufacturing processes and production, and again you see the kinds of processes and skills they learn and maintain, and the kinds of equipment they learn to deal with. And the CPT maintenance awareness, and you see the kinds of things that are a part of that curriculum. And then, do we have the skill boss set up? Great. You see on this back table a machine that you see up there on the screen. This is relatively new. Are any of you familiar with Amatrol? I know Joyce is. Amatrol makes a lot of equipment for a lot of different organizations, and this is an Amatrol product called Skill Boss. And we've got people I'm going to introduce you to from Tech Labs who are here, because Tech Labs represents a number of associations like MSSC. They're MSSC's primary representative in Texas, and they're a resource for you as you think about going down this pathway. And then here's the Certified Logistics Associate, key activities associated with that certification. Give you a moment to look at that, but again, we're going to give you the slide deck. And then the next step is Certified Logistics Technician, and you see the kind of skill sets that you learn as you go through that. And here's the Certified Forklift. If you want to start with that one as well, you certainly can, because you'll find that most companies, particularly if they have technical equipment that costs a lot of money, certainly don't want an unskilled forklift driver trying to run around in their warehouse. They want someone who really, truly does have the skills to operate it. And you kind of see the pathway. Most of you use ACT, I'm told, leading to MSSC CPT, and then you can move up into some of these other programs. NIMS is another national certification body. And some of these others you see, I'm trying to remember which one of these I do. There we go. These are other national certification bodies that can follow MSSC. But we talked about that and said instead of throwing 15 certifications at you at the beginning, we'd start with the 2 basics for the 2 basic sectors and let you build from that. But please know that our goal for this is to build a certification delivery system across the board. That once we've got the system in place, you're interacting with your community college partner, you've got the dual credit offerings and the 2 basics, then we can build those certifications as stackable certifications and grow your program as you want to grow through it. Here are some of the groups that have successfully implemented it. Public-private partnerships. State legislation rewards it. In Texas, both of these certifications are under the TEA approved certifications. Workforce boards, veterans programs. You see that this is pretty much the roadmap we've been following in bringing all of these groups together. Employer benefits. One of the things every school district, again, I've ever talked to wants is more employers engaged with them. And I will make a bet that if you go down the road of industry recognized certifications, employers will want to be your partner because they know you're providing the skill set that they're looking for. I'm certainly not going to go through all of these, but you see some examples. Caterpillar, Cummins, and others, they talk about their experience with this. General Electric, Harley-Davidson, Lockheed Martin, Fort Worth, North Carolina, Toyota, etc. But it really helps your students, and this kind of information is available to you as well to introduce this within your classrooms. It really helps them get into some careers that can pay anywhere from the high $50,000 to up to 6 figures a year, even as they're moving forward. And here's your next steps, and we're trying to make it simple. If you're interested, just indicate your interest and provide a point of contact to Region 10. You're not making a commitment. You can say, we're interested. Let Region 10 know that. Designate that primary point of contact. We'll provide you at that point an introduction to MSSC and Tech Labs who can help you think through this and look at it. And then we'll set an orientation meeting for you and your district. Once we've had that orientation meeting with you in your district, if you decide to proceed, then we'll help you apply to become an MSSC assessment center, help you get 1 or more teachers certified with MSSC to offer the certifications. Tech Labs will help you order the curriculum, and you'll proceed. with Region 10's support and our support. Is that simple enough? Tried to make it simple. Questions? Yes, ma'am.
You said the curriculum is from Tech Labs. Is it the curriculum or is that the equipment, like their modules?
Well, Tech Labs represents MSSC and many others in Texas, and so they're the point of contact for you to order curriculum, equipment, anything that you might want. And there are, I should have put in this slide, there are 8, Chris, I'll get this to you, there are 8 forms of funding that come through the Texas Workforce Commission that can be used for this as well. So we've got a lot of the funding worked out, and we'll get that information to you. But you'll work with Tech Lab. Chris McKay, where are you? Oh, he just stepped out. Gary Tomerlin. Many of you may know Gary. He was Deputy Commissioner at the Higher Ed Coordinating Board. He's now with Tech Labs. Chris McKay, who just stepped out, is with Tech Labs. They'll be the 2 representatives. They're here to show you the skill boss. They're here to talk to you after the meeting if you're interested in talking to them, but they'll walk you through everything. Yes, Joyce?
Just for open communication, just for open communication, I know that there are other companies other than Tech Lab that use the MSSC curriculum as well, so that everybody will be able to kind of know that, simply because of the fact that there are some ISDs that already have logistics programs, and they may not have MSSC certification, but they're using other lab equipment that they've invested over $1 million for.
Sure.
So I don't want them to think that they have to be update that lab equipment to be able to integrate in MSSC. Dallas County Community College District has had MSSC certifications on 3 or 4 campuses for a number of years, and also embedded into our Associates of Applied Science degree. But what we've been challenged with for the last year and a half, is that what we've found is that we have several employers that do not give preferential treatment of higher nor wage, and just because someone has a CLT or the CPT. So that is another concern as we start to look at many of the ISDs who are looking at CTE programs, having those students coming from low income areas, being able to go through the certification, get out and think, hey, I got this certification, I'm going to get a high-wage job, I'm going to make $114,000 a year. That's not necessarily always the case on average. We found that to be true for some people who have experience in the industry and then come to us and get that certification. It's not necessarily a preferred higher or wage differential between the certifications and non-certifications. But it does help when someone's trying to show a credential.
Absolutely.
But I wanted to make sure that we were
But that's exactly why North Central Texas Board is hosting a meeting for about 400 employers in a couple of weeks, because we are pre-forming consortiums, and the workforce boards are going to be able to work with the school districts to say, we do have in our system identified and coded employers who have said, we will guarantee an interview to those individuals with those certifications, so that the workforce board can preferentially send those students who are on those to those employers. We don't want them to just walk into any company and say, hi, here's my certification. We want to be sure that the schools have access to be able to work with their workforce board and send them to companies who have committed to do this. And the carrot to the company is, you will preferentially get these applicants. If your competitor doesn't guarantee that interview, then we won't put them on the list. But we will make sure that the companies that guarantee those interviews are going to be on the list.
So how far,
Go ahead.
How far away are you from having that collaboration?
We have over 200 employers right now, and we're adding 200 to it in 2 weeks. Okay. So we've got about 400 employers, it looks like, that are going to be in the program to begin. Okay. And I'm assuming that you're not going to be able to start this tomorrow. So probably by the time you get this launched in your school district, we'll have a very robust group of employers for you to work with. It's one reason we didn't expand the program this quickly until we knew we had employers that were signing up to become guaranteed interviewed employers.
So is it something that we could look forward to by the end of the school year, or are we more looking towards next school year?
Well, I think you could look forward to it by December.
Oh, great.
And you've had a question, Kim.
Okay, I've got a couple. All right, so let's talk about what this looks like in our schools. We had the phone conference the other day with MSSC, great conversation, I understand that option. So in that model, we are getting somebody on our own staff trained to deliver the instruction.
Correct.
Okay, so part A of the question is, how does that curriculum align to the program of study and the 4 courses that are listed for the program of study from TEA? What is the relationship between that?
TEA is fully approved, both CLT and CPT. And if we need that level of clarification, I'll get that from TEA for you.
Okay, we do.
Okay.
And there's a second part of that, and that is that you've mentioned the dual credit option. And I know that Mountain View, who we currently have a relationship with, has signed on to offer the dual credit.
Correct.
Now, we have looked at the Cedar Valley website and their logistics courses. So the question is, if Cedar Valley, if DCCD is going to offer the dual credit, are they going to offer courses that will satisfy the program of study course requirements from TEA?
And that, Joyce?
Currently, those courses are embedded into our Associates of Applied Science degree, so those courses are already aligned based on the certification that's there. So it will be that, and again, like you said, we have to be able to get those PIMS codes where they will align. But we also have a level 1 certificate that's there. We also have non-credit. Right now, Mountain View offers that only as a non-credit program. Cedar Valley offers it as a credit program. So those can be aligned because they're embedded into the associate's degree. So it's part of the pathway that can happen. And LaQuisha Foster is here also as our dual credit person for the district, so she can have
Yeah,
we do have Northlake, but Northlake's program is a little bit different than Cedar Valley. Cedar Valley is specifically to manufacturing. Northlake is more of a logistics program, which is very different. Yeah.
Okay.
So that,
Okay, so Wes, here's what we need. All right, so I am looking at this from my position in my charter district, but I'm going to be completely transparent. I got a text message from my son at Texas Tech a week ago that he's done. He's done with Tech. And I support what he's doing because he has a plan. And his plan, because I'm his mother, because I've been involved in this conversation with you for 6 months, is either to go to DCCD and do, or Northwood, and do the logistics, or go to TSTC and do electrical power and control, and go through some of those things. Okay, so y'all, I've got a whole different lens on this, and it's good. It's good that I'm looking at it this way, because here's the thing. First of all, when we go talk to our parents and our students and try to sell this, it's one thing to say, here's a piece of paper, here's some classes, but we need help showing them what that looks like. Because you can go do the classes and get the paper and show up and hate the first day of work because you didn't know. So because we're in the education world, we don't speak this stuff. So we're going to need help, and I think that can come from the business partners. And I'm gonna ask Region 10 to help with this. What would be phenomenal is some really slick videos that we can play at parent orientation to show what this looks like. If you're going to do the logistics program at our school, these are the things. This is what it will look like to you. I don't want to hear about median salary. I need to hear about starting salary. And here's the other thing. Of your 400 businesses, I need a spreadsheet. I need to know these businesses. I need to know which certificates do you really want, which degrees do you really want, what do you prefer, and according to that business, what is the starting salary? And then I need help with marketing. Okay, so I need some of those businesses that are willing to send people and talk to our people. We need help developing posters and flyers and websites. We need permission to use images. We've got to make logistics sound sexy, because if you say logistics to me, I think of box truck, right? Because I don't know any better, all right? I don't really know anything about, outside my own little world. So, maybe it's getting Amazon to let us use images of their drones. Maybe it's getting Bell Nexus to let us use images of the helicopter. So we're gonna need
It's really the
help with
Jetsons
all
car.
of this. The Jetsons part, I want one of them suckers landed in a parking lot, okay? And then I want one to drive to work every day. So these are the types of practical things that we're gonna need, because it's one thing to say, well, if we build it, they'll come. No, we've got to lead them there.
Totally agree. Yes.
As Wes said, well, first of all, let me kind of redact. Well, he gave me a promotion. He called me the former deputy commissioner. I was deputy assistant commissioner. There's an extra word in there and an extra layer. So,
Your pages have
yes, but I have two boys as well. And I don't know why I call them boys, because they're actually 24 and 26 now. They're young men, but I still call them boys. I guess they'll always be boys to me. But I used to tell them that my job was to make decisions for 750,002 students in the state of Texas. The 750,000 I didn't know a whole lot about from a personal talking to them every day and that kind of stuff, but the two of them I did. And my boys did not pursue four-year pathways, and I supported what they were doing. The older one is a diesel mechanic. He works for an AutoNation Ford dealership. He's making a nice six-figure income. And I started to stick to the guys in here, and I realized that was probably not a correct way to phrase it, but he actually just bought a Shelby Mustang and is putting a racing engine in it, just anybody that's into that. It's got 900 horsepower to the rear wheels. It scares the bejesus out of me that he's going to be running that down a track. But my point is he's bought a toy that most of us can't even think about possibly affording, and he's 26 years old. But I tell you all this to say that I agree on all the messaging and alignment and all that kind of stuff. Quite honestly, that's why I left the public sector, and now I'm employed by a company in the private sector to do this. My job title, just for what it's worth, is Government Relations and Strategic Initiatives, and I get paid to go around and talk and interact and talk to some of the people in Austin that Wes and I used to work with to try to do some of the things you're talking about. But I will share with you that whenever my two boys, I like to say that they were minimalists in high school, and I'm not talking some kind of artsy movement kind of thing. I'm talking about they brought up the back end of the bell curve to make your kids look better. You know, if you're going to have a curve, you got to have as many on this side as you do on that side. Well, my boys worked on this side. Just being honest. But we were meeting with a high school counselor one summer, and the high school counselor looked at them and said, you know, if you don't start applying yourselves, you're just going to have to go to a community college. And I didn't tell the high school counselor, you know, my history and my background or who I was or who I thought I was or anything else. I just tried to work with it. But I'm not faulting the high school counselor. I'm not telling you what high school it was or anything else. But I do think it's a system-wide problem. We've all got to work together from a business and industry point of view all the way down. And try to change the messaging and help students understand, as you said for your son, that it's okay. It's not always a four-year degree. But the important thing is I do believe it's training, it's some type of certification, some type of expertise that gets you to the next level. And you know, just as an FYI, and Wes and I are going to talk after this meeting today, I was talking to one of the commissioners at TWC a couple of weeks ago and talking about why MSSC and the skill vaults ought to be at every high school in the state of Texas. And so that's a conversation we'll follow up with. So my point is there's messaging, and we've got to change the conversations, and those conversations are changing, but it takes all of us to partner together to make that happen.
Agreed, and I think something that would be, because let's think about Perkins 5 and the work-based learning that we're supposed to be offering our children from grades K-12, right? Here's what would be awesome. If you've got this list of these 400 industries, if they would go out and be willing to adopt schools that are wanting to provide these programs, so we know specifically who to go to, those that are geographically close to us, that they could provide mentors, that they could provide practicum experiences, that they can help us work out those work-based learning experiences.
I think this is a good time to introduce Eric Batten again. Eric's with TI, and he's here specifically because he's committed to help us build this with industry. Eric, why don't you share the industry point of view on this?
I will. Can you all hear me? I'm going to use my teacher voice if that's okay. I tend to talk too loud when I have a microphone. So there's a couple things that I want you to think about with this. So the first is I'm using my own personal. Last Saturday, I was sitting on the couch and I was like, I'm hungry, but I don't want to go to the grocery store. So I opened my phone and I ordered Instacart, and my groceries showed up at my house two hours later. I paid a delivery fee for that. Think about when you have things delivered, if we can fill these logistics jobs, you can pay less for that delivery fee. So it impacts you. Also, think about a couple 6 months ago or whatever else, it may have been a year ago now, I've gotten older so I can't remember, but Amazon and their next site that they want to go to, Dallas was on the list. Everybody's excited. I think they look at that one thing that said we have this many unfilled logistics jobs in this area. You can't tell me that they're not. If they can't fill the logistics jobs that are there now, why am I going to bring a whole lot more logistics jobs there that will go unfilled? So if you look at companies that might be coming into this area, you have to say, if they have logistics needs, how are we going to meet those needs? But then also I want you to look, because I want to pull it back to TI. You've seen in the news that we also were trying to decide where we're going to build our next 300 millimeter wafer fab. And so we looked at different sites in other countries as well as in the US. And what we determined is our next 300 millimeter wafer fab, that's 1.1 million square feet of manufacturing, is going right next to our existing 300 millimeter wafer fab that is in Richardson. It's called our fab. So over the next several years, we're going to be building this highly advanced manufacturing facility. And if we can't get the materials there because of logistical issues, we are now paying more to build that facility. But more importantly, we're also doubling the products that are coming out of that facility that now have to go somewhere. And so that's only one segment of these logistics jobs. Think about your GPS that you interact with. Think about everybody's talking about these Uber copters and other things like that. Those are all logistics jobs. Also, I need for us to think not absolute. I need us to think in steps. Think about your kids. I'm going to tell you, I've been talking with districts all over the country. And here is a rough estimate of kids. If you take any district that you're working in, there's probably about 40% of kids that are in those districts that are on a 4-year degree track in districts. There are 60% of kids that are probably on some type of associate's degree and or certification track in districts. We tend to look at that as absolutes instead of stepping stones. Think about your kids that are sitting in your classrooms right now. What opportunities are they going to have with this certification that they would not have without this certification? This certification is not a be-all, end-all for kids. An associate's degree is not a be-all, end-all for all kids. And so we have to change the mentality of community college and certifications are less than. Because at the end of the day, employers are paying for kids to go back and get degrees. Let an employer pay for your degree instead of you pay for your degree. That's the communication we need to be talking to kids about. Because I talked to our recruiting team who are recruiting manufacturing technicians. And I'm going to use an example. In the Dallas area, we would have 30 openings for technicians. And we walk into programs and there's 5 kids sitting in those programs. And of those 5 kids, all 5 of them already have in hand a letter that says, when you finish your degree, we will hire you from multiple companies. And so if those kids are sitting in those classrooms with multiple offers from multiple companies, don't think those companies aren't bidding for those kids too. And what that's doing is that's driving up those salaries for those kids. This is the challenge that we're having. If the kids aren't sitting in the classrooms, what can we do to change that? I'm passionate about this because you look at all the districts that are represented in this room and all the people that are represented in this room. If there is one kid in your district that leaves your district and is underemployed, what could we have done to change that for that kid? But more importantly, we need to be having conversations with kids about what is your pathway, because the jobs that the kids that are sitting in your classrooms right now that they will take do not exist today. Logistics, when your kids finish their certification and are actually employable, what those jobs look like 5 years from now are not going to be the jobs that you interact with today. 10 years from now, those jobs are going to be very different. So if we're not communicating to kids that this is a stepping stone and a growth in education, and your certification is the first thing you do, but it's not the be-all, end-all of what you do, they are going to be left behind. So now, even if they're underemployed and they don't have the ability to be lifelong learners and learn new technologies when they come out and learn new things when they come out, now they're going to be left behind even in the careers that you put them in. So we're investing in this because if we don't grow the pool of logistics, we have 13,000 employees in the Dallas area. We have manufacturing in the Dallas area. If we can't get our products out of the Dallas area for a more efficient way, we are no longer going to remain competitive in the areas that we are. And if we can't get the things manufactured 10 years from now because the workforce is not trained appropriately to be able to do that, we are no longer going to be competitive. So when we're looking at these, we have to support this, because if we don't grow the pool large enough that everybody that needs to hire logistics can hire logistics, everybody that needs to hire manufacturing has enough kids to hire manufacturing, everybody can do that, then it's not going to benefit any of us. So I think that the conversations need to significantly shift that if a kid wants to go in a 4-year degree, phenomenal. If a kid wants to go to an associate's degree, phenomenal. If a kid wants to get a certification, phenomenal. But the conversation critically has to be, that's your first step, not your be-all, end-all step. And so he's just shared with you that we're meeting with employers. I will tell you, he called me the other day and he said, is Texas Instruments on board with hiring nonviolent folks that have records? So I said, I don't know. I went into our workforce and I said, here's the question that I was asked. This is exactly the answer I got back from our workforce. Every person that applies to TI has to have a background check. When those background checks come in, we have a whole committee that sits down and looks at those background checks to determine, are they eligible for employment or not? There's lots of factors that go along with that. We're not going to change that. But what we're saying is, we're not closing the door on people because they have a record. And part of it is because if they have the certifications we need and or the degrees that we need, and they're employable by us, we are not closing the door on any of them because we don't have enough. So that's the mentality that we also need to be taking to, is if your kids are leaving your districts and they are not employable, whose challenge is that? And more importantly, if they're not going into high-need, high-wage jobs, whose job is that? The people in this room, the community colleges, the universities, the workforce people, if we don't all work together to change that, we're going to be talking about this same topic 5 years from now. We're going to be talking about the same topic 10 years from now. Now is the perfect time because you have these new programs of study. How many of you offer logistics already?
We're about to.
How many of you offer manufacturing already? Do you see what we're saying? But let's think about this. How many of you offer robotics? Okay, new programs of study. You have courses that are in manufacturing. Yes?
Yeah, and so one thing that I'm not seeing here that I see there's going to be a gap to help us, accomplish this. I do not see a pipeline of how we're going to feed the instructors for these two areas. So do you have any plans in your development of how maybe we can take some of those retirees who are coming out of these positions and encourage them to come back into maybe education, or how we're going to help find the instructors who have experience in these two areas?
The schools we've worked with to date are taking their existing teachers and they're getting them certified through these national associations. And you can do that distance learning wise. I mean, they don't have to go somewhere. Tech Labs can talk to you about that as well. There's a very nominal cost to get a teacher certified to teach these certifications. Mineral Wells ISD, for example, just launched this. They're using their existing CTE faculty. They got them certified. They've launched the program. They're using the training equipment, and it's working well for them. And we can give you or put you in touch with school districts that are doing this. And one of the reasons the region has set up this consortium is so we can continue to work with you, answer your questions, support you, help you interact with the right people.
I know how to get them certified for them to be able to teach you.
Okay.
What I'm looking for is a pipeline of people with experience in the industry.
Gotcha.
That's what I would like to see, and I think would really help, because that makes the class so much more engaging for the student if they get a real world experience of how you apply it. So I would like to see that, something that you guys maybe improve in the future, of a way to help us find contacts with people who might be interested in that.
In the short term, I think when we meet with those employers, we've got a major meeting coming up on the 19th. We can certainly add that to the ask for them. We can certainly go to the ones we're already working with and ask them to step up and include that in what we ask of them.
Yeah, because you're hemorrhaging workers, we're hemorrhaging teachers.
Right.
The hot job market, so remember when they flocked to us during the recession because we were the safe haven for a paycheck, right? Well, now this hot job market is killing our efforts at trying to retain teachers. So that, yes, totally agree with
But
that.
this is a thing that you also have to view. So we have an initiative at TI because we have an initiative to hire college graduates. Because a significant percentage of our workforce are going to be retiring in the next 5 to 10 years as well. And so think about the brain power in those folks that will be retiring from companies like us that need these jobs that can help you do exactly what you asked. And that's a conversation we need to have with the employers as well, because we're not the only company that are seeing that same thing. And your challenges with being able to hire highly qualified teachers and being able to do this is the same thing that we're having with, we have this pool of people that are highly qualified that are about to be retired from TI that could fill those gaps. So yes, that's a conversation to have, as well as other ways that's why we're at a service center as well, to be able to bring together those collaborations with those districts to figure out how do we meet those workforce for the teachers as well.
And I just want to throw this in because educators, we need to think bigger as well. We got to get visionary, because a lot of times what we do is sit and go, well, industry bring us this or somebody bring us that. We have the opportunity to manage change well right now, and what I'm going to tell you is just even think about the teacher incentive allotment. That's a conversation that's happening right now. And I'm just saying, if you haven't invested enough time into looking to see what those planning grants look like and what that might possibly mean, and we're having this conversation of how you get these skilled folks to come to us, then maybe that's an avenue. So I'm just saying, let's all be thinking, what do we bring to the table? And I just know that's one of the things that's out there. That might be a conversation to start looking at and thinking in your district. What could that look like?
Definitely, because that's a challenge for all industries.
Okay, 2 questions over here, Eric.
Well, I don't know if I necessarily have a question.
Okay, or a comment.
A comment. So we're already doing a lot of this, and so it's good to see. But first of all, I think as educators, we need to take a step back. It's not that hard, okay? Because we're in education all the time, and so we think like educators, but we have to think like industry.
Can you tell us where you're from?
Garland ISD. So I'm at the current technical center there. So a lot of our instructors that we have, they're not educators, they're industry people. And we did that on purpose because I didn't want teachers teaching kids what they don't know. And so there's a lot of things that we can do. We have district innovation that we can do. Think outside the box a little bit. I mean, we don't need teachers to do this. We need industry people to do this. The second thing behind some of your questions about industry, it's simple. Go talk to your industry people that are in your neighborhood. Now, Garland, we have an advantage. We have about 300 manufacturers just in our area. But what we did was we went to the Chamber of Commerce. We have an incredible relationship with our Chamber of Commerce. We meet people all the time. They're in our building. As a matter of fact, North Texas's FAME program that's starting, they're actually using us as their pipeline now. And so that's the very first one. So there's only 3 in the state of Texas. There's 1 in San Antonio. There's 1 in Tyler. And the third one is ours. And they're specifically targeting us. We already have manufacturers online. They were in our school last week. They're in our schools all the time. We invite them. They meet our kids, and it's amazing what you can do with the manufacturers because they want us. They want to be in our schools. They want us to be there. We have a really tight relationship with DCCD with all of their schools, and all we do is ask questions, and we say, hey, this is what we want to do. Don't think like educators, think like industry, because if we continue to think like educators, we'll continue to be 20 years behind. We'll continue to be 15 years behind. We need to be on time with industry. We need to be flexible. We need to be able to adapt, to overcome, and that's why some of our classrooms are adaptable. Because what we're teaching now is not what we're going to teach in 3 years from now. And so we have to continue to push that envelope. So my challenge to all the educators is think like industry, act like industry, go to their factories, walk the factory floors, ask questions. You don't have to be an expert. They don't want you to be the expert. They just want a relationship with you, and they will bend over backwards for you. Our industry partners are incredible. They give us stuff. They're always in our classrooms. We invite them out all the time. We go to them, they come to us, and our relationships are like this. And so my number one thing is keep it simple. Keep it simple, don't overthink it, because industry is already there. What he's talking about doing, it's kind of cool. It's like, hey, we're already doing that. We already have Apex online. We have Amazon that we work with. And we have the Megatronics. We have all the equipment. I mean, we got everything, and that's just from industry. We asked industry, what do you need? What do you want? They said, this is what you need. And the number one thing that I believe that you said is, when industry tells you something, do it. When they tell you something, do it, because they will hire your kids like that. We had a kid hired $65,000 right out of high school because he got a certification.
What area code?
That was in networking cybersecurity. So we do networking cybersecurity, and we have a ton of our manufacturing kids already online to go work in jobs when they graduate this year. We do some of the things that we fight with industry is that 17 to 18, but we're already working with our manufacturers to try to get those, get that eliminated. Because one of the things we did find out is they say, well, they can't work here until they're 18. Well, that's just a company thing. That's not a legal thing. That's not a legislative thing. So that's just something that we have to work with our company with. But those are all the questions we ask because we ask questions because they're continually in our building. So that's my statement.
Thank you.
I was going to talk about logistics. You made something we've been talking about for about 5 years, making logistics sexy. I got involved with a group of, it's called MHI, Material Handling Institute, and they are the overseers and the association for all the logistics suppliers. They have a conference every year for all the suppliers to come meet. It's huge. It can only be held in Atlanta and Chicago. They fill up both convention halls there. Got to go about 5 times. They also have a teacher institute in the summer. And that's for teachers that are teaching the courses. They bring you up 3 to 5 days. They pay for everything except your travel. and then they give you the information. I'm sorry. I've been working with MHI, Material Handling Institute, for about 5 years, getting ours set up. When we started talking about building the center, I went to my boss and said, we need to put a logistics class in. And the first thing he said to me is, what is logistics? So, first problem is teaching people what logistics is and the need for it. We did not get it the first year. This is actually the second year we've had it. We had 5 seniors last year, and I expected them to work in the industry. They all came from a non-background college. 4 of them went straight into college. They want to be the managers. They work on the floor of the warehouse. They want to be the managers. Or the other one went into logistics. She started in logistics. But they're starting a little bit higher than everybody else. We do have MSSC set up. My instructor's trained for the first one. He is getting trained for the second one, so our students now will start getting the first level of MSSC logistics training. So we're working on it. We had a meeting last week. We had a manufacturing company come in that sells warehousing software and does work in the background for manufacturers. We actually had them. We had another one of our manufacturing companies come in. We had UTD, UCCD from North Lake there, all talking about what we can do to help them and what they can do to help us. They are willing and able. I called Apex 2 years ago and said, can I come talk to you? They invited me to come to their monthly meeting, gave me a free meal. I now have somebody that comes in. I have 3 people that come in almost weekly to help our students with logistics in other areas. So they're out there, they're willing to help. You've just got to find out what you're doing, and you need to be able to train your counselors on what it is. Last week we had a student tell us that I was over talking to my counselor about logistics, and they said, that's going to be boring, but if you want to go, we'll go. And he said, I love it. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of life. He said, I was going to be a computer scientist. He says, now I'm going to do logistics. So you have to teach people what logistics is. We started out with 16 kids. And you've got to find the right teacher.
So I have a question on that topic. So we're building a space for logistics, and so one of the we kind of surveyed our kids, and so is Garland doing anything to target the middle school population? So middle school kids, so they understand what logistics is, because once it gets to choice selection at 8th grade, none of them will choose, and that happened to you guys at the beginning because I was there when it happened, right? So none of the kids, the logistics wing was empty. So as I'm working on that now, I'm thinking about it. What have you guys done to ensure that the middle school kids understand what it is, so that you start getting kids selected and fill up that wing that you have?
I haven't yet. We've talked with Apex about doing some things, with some simple videos. MHI has some simple videos that we can show. I get a video from MHI every day, basically on things that they're doing. Blockchain, elevators was yesterday. So,
and we started looking at innovative courses at the middle school now, since CTE is going to be funded in middle school. Yeah. So we're looking at, so an idea for you guys, looking at innovative courses, the career exploration, and fit in logistics in one of those innovative courses, so then they can get it, maybe at 7th grade, so they understand what it is by the time they get to 8th.
We put in Introduction to Transportation as a middle school course for high school credit. We don't really have a curriculum for it. We're going to start writing it and put logistics in as part of it. Because it's a semester class, we can spend 6 weeks on logistics, hoping to get some of that started. And Apex is trying to help get some material for them to look at, to see about. So we're on that way, but that is just a place to start at.
I'll come see you. I'm going to come see your plans.
So,
you
if y'all want to come see us, we'll be glad to have you.
That's
the assistant principal. I'm the coordinator for the district in charge of it. So we got.
I have a question here.
Yes, Mr. Stu Groves from UNT, excuse me. And I'm glad to see you. We couldn't make it last week.
Again, good morning. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Subro Mitra. I'm the associate professor and chair for UNT Dallas Logistics Program, Logistics and Supply Chain Program. So when Eric came to my office, I think it was 2 weeks back, and informed me about this meeting, I was really excited. We had been doing things with Cedar Valley College, with Northlake, with your schools, a number of other schools in the Dallas School District. I hope this isn't working.
You're
so.
good. No,
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Closer.
So we had been doing a lot of stuff with different schools and colleges. But when I heard about this meeting, and Wes is here, I thought this is a good opportunity to reach out to you. First and foremost, the picture of logistics is changing really fast. We talk about certificates, we talk about associate degrees, we talk about BS degrees, but our students should be given that career path, like where they can go. It doesn't end at any particular point. If they get a certificate, it doesn't mean it ends there. They can continue further to a university, they can continue further for the masters and whatever. That's most important. And we are working with schools and community colleges to create that pathway. That's very important to let students know, otherwise they might get frustrated. The other thing is, like, there are new technologies which are entering the logistics field. And as such, logistics is not a field as such. It is an amalgamation of different theories and ideas and technologies. Information technology has entered the logistics field in a big way. Things like cloud computing. We no more host our data on premise, it's all cloud. Our students, as a logistics student, they need not be an expert in programming or in information technology, but they should know what it means. When someone talks with them, like we store our data in cloud, they should know what that means. When someone talks about blockchain, they should know what that means. That's what I tell my students. You need not be scared away from those terms. You need not go and do a Java coding or a Python coding, but you should know what's happening here so that you don't get shy away from that. We are working with, our campus is again in the southern part of Dallas. We are working with Lancaster, DeSoto, Wilmer to set up a center of excellence in logistics and supply chain in our campus. The other thing which is important is we are setting up a logistics lab. We talk about manufacturing, but manufacturing is also changing big time. We are bringing in robotics in our manufacturing. Okay? And unless we do that, we cannot compete with goods which are produced in other countries. We have to bring automation in our manufacturing. And for that, we are setting up a logistics lab. And I would like to get all our school kids, our kids from the community colleges to come over and take a look at how things work. There is a thing called IoT, Internet of Things, which has got sensors. It picks up things and it can do things automatically. It's automated. So our students should know about what is that IoT. Again, for me, this is just the beginning. I will not continue any further, but I would like to talk to you and maybe whoever is interested, so we can create that pathway. We have already had a discussion with you, like through Apex and stuff. But okay, I'm also very active in the Apex. I'm in the board of directors for Apex. We'll talk on this and we'll try to see whatever we can do for our students. Thank you.
I think what you're beginning to see emerge, this is about connectivity to a significant degree. One of the reasons they've given you that code to join this consortium is about connectivity. We're going to start sending you information. Some of you have talked about the need for these film clips. There are 3 webinars coming up MSSC is putting on. We're going to send you the information on that. Chris already has it. Manufacturing group that we talked about, their next meeting is in Atlanta coming up, I believe in March, isn't it? We're going to send you information from there. We have other associations that offer these certifications related. We're going to send you information so that we can create awareness among you and connect you with all of the other partners in the model. Because I think that's one of the keys we found, even at the state agency level, the lack of connectivity in a significant way among the 8 agency partners wasn't where it should have been. And it's moved a long way since then. And the thing I heard as I walked around the state getting input for the current 8-year plan was we're not connected truly. We know who each other is. We're not really, truly integrated and aligned in terms of school districts, colleges, employers, workforce boards, all of the sectors we've talked about. And the employer reaction. When I talked to Matt Rose at Burlington Northern Santa Fe, the first thing he said was, I know we need to be doing more, but we didn't know where to start. If you're going to give me a structure I can work within, I'm happy to do so. And so a lot of times it's providing someone with nothing more than a structured approach. Here's who does what by when. Here's who you can engage with. Here's how we can bring you the support materials you need. Here's how we can connect you with the people you need to be connected with, who can respond to questions or link you to employers or do the things Kim talked about. That's the essence of this. It's not you finding a lot of new money to hire a lot of new people. It's about how we do things a little differently than we're used to doing them. And I loved your point about thinking like industry. Because I've found that over the years, industry and education sometimes speak different languages. But you'll find that industry speaks one language. Where do I find the talent I need? And if you position yourselves to be that talent producer, I know I talked to one college professor who said, our purpose is not to create a workforce. Our purpose is to create great thinkers. And I said, ask all the great thinkers in your class if they want a job. I'll bet they all will. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Wes, I'm Lynette Greenoff from the Dallas Regional Chamber, part of the Educational Workforce.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't think this is on, but would
It
you,
is.
I've
Yeah,
got
you
two
can.
questions. One, would you, those 200 companies that you talked about and the 400 that you were recruiting, share some thoughts with these folks about how many of those actually have operations right here in the Dallas region?
All of
so
them.
that they all are operating here? Okay, and then the second piece is, and one of the things we focus on a lot is those gateway jobs. Clearly, these certifications are entry-level gateway jobs. I'd be interested in addressing her question about what is that starting salary for these, and then what does the pathway look like for those students that these school districts are going to train for those certifications. They enter the industry world, and what does that pathway look like for them to move through that industry to those high-wage jobs that you referred?
We're going to provide that for you, and that's under development right now. That's why we're working with so many of these national associations, and we're going to have that ready by spring. But all of the companies I'm referring to are here, and I'll give you one example. The Logistics and Distribution Center Walmart runs at Alliance. If you are non-certified, you will make about $4 less an hour than if you're certified. And if you're certified, your starting is about $36,000. Now, if I'm coming right out of high school, that beats flipping burgers at minimum wage. No, they're not going to start at $100,000, but those are the average salaries in that sector, not the top level salaries. Those are the average salaries. So the average worker is going to make close to $60 in the North Texas Metroplex, but a starting salary, if you're certified, can easily be $36,000.
And then where do they move from after these two entry-level certifications? What's the next level job path?
It depends. If they want to go into automation, there's a series, there's groups, NOCTI, NIMS, and others that are the levels above that. We're going to get you all that information. We're not trying to give you 17 national associations and all of their certifications today, but we are trying to get you thinking about going down at least 2 pathways that are the highest unmet needs in North Texas. When you look all across the sectors, those are the jobs that need skills that we're not filling that can be responded to. And you think about the logistics and manufacturing nexus. If you go to the GM plant in Arlington, you're going to find that there's one company a mile from it pre-assembling parts and components from over 600 companies just to make the dashboard assembly. And it's got to be pre-delivered to the assembly line 2 hours before it's installed on one of those truck bodies coming down the line, and they have to be perfectly sequenced. They've got people working on algorithms so that they can reduce the number of times they change the paint color when it goes through the part of the assembly process where they paint the truck, because by being able to only change paint every 5 truck bodies instead of every 2.5, it saved GM $3.8 million a year. That's logistics too. And you won't find anybody screwing a bolt on a car fender. You'll find some very sophisticated robotics operations that are assembling those GM products. And so, as T.I. Eric aptly said, logistics is getting so integrated with manufacturing. Go into those logistics and distribution facilities, they're robotics. Nobody loads boxes on cars anymore. But you start off at an entry level, but you can even move up through supervisory levels pretty quickly because they're so needful of these kinds of employees. Now, as this grows and we build all the connectivity, you can branch out into any certification programs you want to. But we're giving you a starting point, and the reason we're asking you to at least indicate interest by going to that little consortium the region set up is now we can communicate with all of you effectively and link you with each other. And there's certainly a role for the Dallas Chamber if you want to visit with me. Love to have you. Yes, Eric.
So I wanted to share a little bit more because I also know we've been working with districts and community colleges and other things like that. So if I look at it from a district standpoint, you're also looking at, okay, you've just been delivered this program of study, and how does that program of study tie into the community college as well as university? So I'm going to use an example, a subset of that manufacturing. We've been working with Dallas County Community College districts and several districts because we need advanced manufacturing with a specific in mechatronics. So we've been working on what does that pathway look like for kids in high school, starting at 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. I think one thing that might be helpful is if we can work with Dallas County Community College District as well as Service Center and Garland and other people that are doing it, as well as that program of study, and send out a sample of what that could look like, that then there will be slight tweaks that districts will have to be made because they may offer this course, not this course, but at least then you have a model that you can build upon to be able to do that, because that's where you all are right now trying to figure out, because you're getting information from TEA about these programs of study. Dallas County Community College District has this program, and how do we merge those so that then you have a model that could work to be able to get you where you need to go? Because otherwise, if we don't do that and at least be able to provide that model, then Dallas County Community College District is having to work with every single district independently to be able to do that. So we could help streamline some of that too, working, because we've already been a little bit further down the path, specifically looking at mechatronics, which is a degree that we need. And so we can look and figure out how could we do that as well with these logistics, and then more of these manufacturers move into those certificates. Because that also helps better understand what is for credit, what are the not for credit, those types of things, so we can help with that as well.
And it'll also make it easier because you're not having to fight one program over here versus this over here. It all is logistics.
In other words, another way to think about this consortium is that Region 10 is going to guide, manage, support the efforts to integrate community college districts and independent school districts in Region 10. We're going to provide you linkage with employers and workforce boards and bring that integration to this. And you're going to get a lot of information from national associations. But overall, it'll give you the connectivity you need to even help Garland as good as what they're doing now to keep expanding, because we've still got a lot of jobs to fill and a lot of kids to educate. Other comments, discussions, questions? Gary, any closing comments you want to add from Tech Lab's perspective?
Well, I was going to say that Amitral provides free instructor training. We won't pay for transportation to get there. We won't pay logistics of getting there. Amitral, to our customers, the users of our products, offers free training every summer and instructor training. And so if you need somebody trained, you can talk to us. I don't know where Chris went, but he's around here somewhere, and we'll get the skill. Oh, he's behind me. Okay, we'll get the skill.
Stand up, Chris, so they know what you look like.
Hey, Chris.
And, you know, as we talk about logistics, we talk about the foundation of this, we've also mentioned robotics and automation. And I really and truly think that there was a show of hands earlier about who has a robotics program and then who has a logistics program. There were not near as many hands. General Motors has over $150 million worth of installed robots in their plant in Arlington. Since we represent the company, I'll go ahead and plug the name, Fanic Robotics. Their North American headquarters, they're doubling the warehouse space. They're warehousing over 30,000 robots. Wes talked about the painting process. They've changed up the robots that paint the cars to where the paint in the end of the hose into the line is almost non-existent. And it's kind of like the Coke dispenser at Wendy's or whatever, to where the boxes are back there somewhere, and it's just coming out of the machine up here, the boxes of Coke and Dr. Pepper and all that stuff. Well, if something happens, they have to flush those lines, they waste all that product. Automotive paint is very, very expensive, and so they've got the flush part down to just basically nothing. And the robots that paint these vehicles are larger than the size of this room. It's just unbelievable where the technology is going. And what we're talking about is the students that can work on this technology and make it function and do everything that it needs to do. And yeah, like at Amazon, at the end of the day, it's getting whatever it is you ordered, getting it in a box, and getting it to your house in 2 hours. But it's so much more than a box.
I'd like to make a comment on that. I think we need to make a clear delineation, though, between robotics and industrial robotics, because all of us educators go, oh yeah, we have robotics, but you have VEX for FIRST robotics. That's not what industry wants. Industry wants industrial robotics, industrial FANUC, KUKA, those type of robotics. It's a totally different interface, it's a different way of thinking, it's a different all that. So when we say, hey, we have robotics, yes, you have VEX, yes, and industry thinks VEX and FIRST that's a fun game to play, but that's not what I need in my manufacturing floor. What I need is somebody that knows how to do FANUC or KUKA, that knows those interfaces, and that's the robotic arms, that's all that. So you have to think industrial robotics, not just robotics. I've got a VEX club at my school.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ivy Baptiste, and I am not an educator. I've been invited by this wonderful lady, Mr. Ball. Thank you. I'm a 28-year industry employer. So it's been fascinating for me to sit and hear you guys as educators kind of go into uncharted territory, if you will. And just your thought process and how you're processing how to get your hands around this whole thing of introducing a brand new curriculum to your districts. So this is my poor attempt to kind of just give you guys some encouragement from an industry perspective. I resonated perfectly well with how you laid everything out. It resonated with me perfectly in terms of how you need to introduce this to your district to get your kids fascinated by it, right? More hands went up when we said robotics because it's robotics, right? Kids hear robotics, go great. And we get to go in the classroom and play with robots all day, and you say logistics, and everyone goes, what is that? You know, what is logistics? So I'll frame it up to you guys this way. For all of your kids in your districts that will not go to the traditional four-year college or university, they will end up in our industry 9 times out of 10, right? So with these certifications, because I see there's a lot of consternation around, what does it mean from a salary perspective? What does these certifications really mean to our kids? Do they hold their weight in water, right? How do I translate that to them? So here's the difference, right? It's the difference between one of your kids coming into one of my distribution centers at $7 or $10 an hour, or coming into my distribution center at $15 an hour. The difference also is the kids with that certification, I'm going to fast track them. Because those are the kids that I see making an investment into logistics, supply chain management, transportation management. There's a lot of different acronyms I can throw out to you guys that fall under the umbrella of logistics. But my point is, those kids that come into those distribution centers with some type of certification, we're going to fast track those kids. Because they've shown an interest and they have the groundwork of the foundational infrastructure for what we do on a daily basis. As you guys drive through DFW, you see all these fancy concrete structures going up all over the place, right? The demand in Dallas is astronomical. My biggest challenge as an employer for everywhere I've been, and I've been fortunate enough throughout my career to work with 3 Fortune 500 companies, my biggest challenge is retention. How do I attract and retain people into my distribution facility? in any facet, whether it be inventory control, receiving, all these different elements of what I do. And it is a battle. Most of my employment comes through temp agencies. In some cases, over 60%. And it's truly an unskilled labor, uncommitted labor. So for me, coming from industry to partner with you to get kids coming out of high school into my facility, I would give my left arm to do that. I am telling you guys, that part of this whole thing is going to be easy for you. Now, I'm not an educator, so as educators, as you laid it out, you guys give the vision, lay this out for the kids from a marketing perspective, and you get them interested in this. And I'm telling you, the nuts and bolts of what we do, everything from inventory control to transportation management, we can keep them excited once they get into the program, but you have to get them there. That part I can't do. You get them into the program, there's enough that they're gonna learn, and there's enough that's gonna keep them engaged that they're gonna enjoy starting a career path in logistics. So an example would be, I'll use myself as an example. I started off in logistics making $5 an hour. I just aged myself a little bit. But the point is, I started off making $5 an hour. I had no clue, it was just a warehouse. And the company took interest in me. That company at the time was Office Depot. I've lived in 6 states in 12 years. I've been in the industry for 28 years. And 14 of those 28 years, I've been fortunate enough to make 6 figures. But once again, I started off at $5 an hour, okay? So when you say, what is that career path? That career path is there. You have companies like Amazon. I mean, the amount of companies that are coming to the DFW area is overwhelming. The whole southwest corridor of Dallas, it is overwhelming. We cannot keep up. But we need to start somewhere, and your guys, you making that connection with industry, I'm telling you, is gonna bridge the gap. But you have to get the kids to us and then go from there. So I hear your concerns. It was awesome for me to sit through this whole process of how you guys are envisioning this and how you're trying to bring this to your kids. Once you put these programs together and you get the kids there, connecting with industry will be easy for you. That's the easy part. And the kids will stay interested, but you have to get them there first. And once you get them there, we can do the rest. We'll partner with you to do the rest. So.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm trying to think through pathways that TA has set up, and you guys are going back and forth between robotics and automation, and then you're going to logistics, and the pathways aren't lining up for the job I have to do and implement out of school. And so I'm trying to, this has been great, and I've got a lot of there's some people in the room, I need to get your information. And we're located, I'm actually with Ferris, which is located 15 minutes south of Dallas, and we're looking to make some changes and get kids these certifications. But I want to make the best decisions for, because we aren't, you know, Garland is huge. We're small, but we have, you know, we're graduating 150 kids a year, and probably 100 could be going into these certifications and going to work. And I'm not really sure what they're doing right now because we're new, so we're trying to make some changes to get them moved up. One of the questions I have is I was at a Region 10 presentation a few days ago with drones, and it was very interesting, and I feel like that falls, the drones can be falling into, when you were talking about, you just made me think of it when you were talking about the logistics and moving packages and moving things. What do you guys see drones, do you see it going into eventually, into some distribution and logistics type pathways and courses? Because right now I'm stuck in aviation, and I feel like it's kind of, yeah, it is a pathway to aviation, but it's also a pathway to, so if you guys, I don't know if you want to share anything about maybe what anybody thoughts. I'm sure I've just spurred on so much curiosity right now.
Well, let me say this, the unmanned and autonomous systems capabilities are going to integrate into almost everything. There are over 300 applications already out there on the marketplace. It's going to be one of the fastest growth areas. I've got the Council of Governments, a task force underway with about 200 members. I'm putting together, as we speak, a steering committee of industry, independent school districts, community colleges, workforce boards, the 2 educational service centers, and a few others to really map out what that UAS training pathway will need to look like. But one simple indication, what you used to know as Bell Helicopter is now Bell Flight, and they've described themselves as a technology company. Not an aircraft company, a technology company, developing the enabling technologies to further the use of UAS. There's a professor at UT Arlington College of Engineering that currently has 4 National Science Foundation awards, developing those enabling technologies as we speak. And that's going to invade every sector we're talking about. Bell has already created what they call the Bell Air Taxi. They've already partnered with Uber, and they plan to test it within 2 years, first in DFW, second in LA. And if you see it, and you can Google Bell Flight, and you will find it, you'll see what used to be George Jetson's car that took him to work every day is now real, and it flies. That's where the industry's at. So it's one more reason that I applaud Region 10 for being willing to step up and play a leadership role in this. Because I think if you'll take to heart just joining this consortium, if you do nothing more after today but sign up, the information flow coming to you is going to help you make those critical decisions. And certainly, go back to what we said the region was doing. They're convening you, they're going to interface with you, and they're going to interface with the state agencies, i.e. TEA and the coordinating board. So when it comes to integrating these certifications with the career pathways that you have to live with under TEA, that's one of the roles we can play. We don't have every single question you have answered today, but we're bringing you together so that we can gain the understanding of what you do need so we can help you proceed and to start integrating you with industry so you can hear industry's point of view. Because too often educators convene educators and industry convenes industry. And we sometimes need to convene all the sectors together. And that's another part of this. Dr. West, any last closing comments? Because we're approaching the hour we promised to adjourn.
I do have closing comments. Before you leave, please write down your WITNA. And if you don't know what a WITNA is, I'm going to tell you. What is your next action? So what is the next action? That's a WITNA. What is the next action? Because another difference between educators, I think maybe sometimes, is that as educators, we come here, we get information, we get all jazzed up about all the work we're going to do, and then we go back and there's 5 people waiting at your door, and there's another thing and this deal to do. And so we really do need to commit ourselves to something. Here's some that I've committed myself to, which my team is now shaking. First of all, I wonder, and maybe somebody can answer this for me in a little bit. I know that the Texas Education Agency reimburses for national board certification for professional teaching standards. And I wonder what they would reimburse our educators for if we get career technical education kinds of things, or if that's something we need to advocate for. Because I thought that might be a good pathway to get people that are our current educators to move into some of these things. Also, we do learning on location, and we do learning on location for science and those kinds of things. We're going to look into doing a lot of learning on location for our counselors, because I heard several examples today of a counselor said, and it was all, those were not good things the counselor said. So I wasn't impressed with that part. We need to fix that. What I wrote down is, how does the teacher allotment opportunity fit into this conversation? Then I crossed that out and I said, how do the opportunities in House Bill 3 allow us to do more to move CTE pathways forward? Because there's also the outcomes bonuses and all those kinds of things that are in House Bill 3. We need to dig into that, educators. And for our team, you know, if we're saying we're leading for infant industry, what exactly does that mean, and what are our steps? Because we can't just say a cool logo or motto and not move it forward. Because, sir, I want your left arm. I am after your left arm. Because if you will give your left arm, we want to do that, because that's what's good for our kids, is the fact that if we partner with you, and industry is open arms for our students, think about what that does to the economic impact of this area. We will make a difference. So we're after your left arm. You better be watching. Y'all, thank you so much for coming to Region 10 today. I hope you have written down your WITNA. What is the next action?